Part 1. The lie about confidence suggested length. 837 words. Most people are not insecure because they lack confidence. They are insecure because they have spent years asking permission to exist. You do not lose your power all at once. You lose it in small, quiet moments. When you explain why you said no. When you apologize for needing space. When you rewrite a simple message 5 times because you are terrified of sounding selfish. When someone misunderstands you, and instead of letting them sit with their version of the story, you drag your piece into a courtroom that only exists inside their mind. That is not communication. That is self-abandonment with better grammar. Welcome to Stoic Chisel. If this message reaches the part of you that is tired of explaining, tired of shrinking, tired of proving that you are not a bad person every time you choose yourself, then subscribe to this channel, because what we build here is not loud confidence. It is the kind of inner strength that does not need applause to remain standing. The modern world has lied to you about confidence. It told you confidence means being seen, being impressive, speaking louder, taking up more space, looking unbothered even when your nervous system is burning underneath your skin. It told you that if you could just explain yourself clearly enough, people would finally understand you, approve of you, respect your boundaries, and stop questioning your choices. But the Stoics would have called this a trap. Because the moment your peace depends on another person's interpretation of you, you are no longer free. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control, and some things are not. Your intentions are within your control. Your words are within your control. Your discipline, your honesty, your boundaries, your response, these belong to you. But another person's opinion of you, their mood, their assumptions, their need to turn your boundary into an attack, that is not yours. And yet, how many days of your life have you handed over to things that were never yours to carry? Think about the last time you said no. Maybe it was not even a dramatic no. Maybe a friend invited you somewhere, and you were tired. Maybe a coworker asked you to take on one more task, and your body already felt empty. Maybe someone texted you at midnight, expecting immediate emotional access, and for once, you did not want to be available. So you typed a simple sentence, "I can't make it tonight." Then the panic arrived. You stared at the screen. You added, "I'm so sorry." Then you added a reason. Then another reason. Then you softened the reason so it would not sound cold. Then you explained that you really do care, that you hope they understand, that things have just been a lot lately. And by the time you pressed send, your no had become a confession. Your boundary had become a plea. Your peace had been dressed up to look acceptable to someone else. This is how people become emotionally exhausted without realizing why. They think they are tired because others misunderstand them. But often, they are tired because they keep trying to be understood by people who are not actually listening. There is a dangerous kind of confidence that begins when you stop treating every misunderstanding like an emergency. It does not mean becoming cruel. It does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean refusing to explain yourself when explanation is appropriate. It means you stop offering your nervous system as payment for someone else's approval. It means you stop turning every boundary into a public debate. It means you stop believing that being disliked is the same as being wrong. A person with real confidence does not need to dominate the room. They do not need to win every argument. They do not need to make everyone see their heart clearly. They simply know where they stand. And because they know where they stand, they stop moving every time someone disapproves. This is the quiet power most people never develop. Not because it is unavailable to them, but because it costs something. It costs the addiction to being liked. It costs the fantasy that everyone will understand you if you just find the perfect words. It costs the old identity of being the easy one, the flexible one, the one who always makes everyone else comfortable. But here is the truth. If your confidence depends on being understood, it can be destroyed by anyone willing to misunderstand you. And some people will misunderstand you because they lack information. But others will misunderstand because your clarity threatens the benefits they received from your confusion. So before you explain again, pause. Ask yourself one question. Am I offering clarity, or am I begging for permission? Because the real danger is not that you explain too much. The real danger is that every unnecessary explanation teaches your mind to ask permission before it chooses peace. And that is where part 2 begins. Part 2, over-explaining is self-abandonment, suggested length. 777 words. Over-explaining looks harmless. Harmless. It can even look kind. You tell yourself, I just want to be clear. But be honest. Most of the time, you are not explaining because clarity is needed. You are explaining because guilt is loud. You are explaining because someone's disappointment feels like danger. You are explaining because a part of you still believes that if you can make your decision sound gentle enough, reasonable enough, painful enough, then maybe no one will punish you for having a boundary. This is where self-abandonment begins. Not with some dramatic betrayal, not with one catastrophic decision, but with the quiet habit of leaving yourself every time someone else becomes uncomfortable with your truth. A boundary does not become more valid because you decorate it with a paragraph. No, does not become more moral because you attach your suffering to it. You do not need to prove that you are exhausted enough to rest. You do not need to prove that you are overwhelmed enough to decline. You do not need to prove that your peace has reached some acceptable level of emergency before you are allowed to protect it. The Stoics understood something modern people keep forgetting. A reaction is not a command. Someone can be disappointed, and you can still be right. Someone can call you selfish, and your boundary can still be necessary. Someone can misunderstand your silence, and your silence can still be wise. This is the discipline of assent. You do not have to agree with every judgment that knocks on the door of your mind. You do not have to invite every accusation inside and serve it tea. You can look at a person's reaction and say, quietly, internally, that belongs to them. Imagine this. Your boss asks you to stay late again. Not once, not for an emergency. Again. Your chest tightens before you even answer, because your body already knows the pattern. You say, I'm not available tonight. Then your boss exhales in that disappointed way, not angry, just heavy enough to make you feel guilty. And suddenly, the old script wakes up. You start explaining. You mention your family. You mention how tired you have been. You mention that you helped last week. You mention that you wish you could, that you really care, that you do not want to let anyone down. But underneath all those words is one hidden sentence. Please do not think badly of me. That is the sentence that drains you, not the work, not the request, the begging, the invisible begging to remain good in the eyes of someone who benefits when you ignore your limits. Dangerous confidence begins when you stop turning your boundaries into emotional resumes. You do not need to submit evidence. You do not need to prove your humanity. You do not need to make your self-respect convenient for people who preferred you without it. Try this instead. That does not work for me. I am not available for that. I understand you feel that way, but my answer is still no. Notice how short those sentences are. That is not because they are rude. It is because they are clean. A clean boundary does not attack. It does not beg. It does not ask to be liked. It simply stands. And this will feel terrifying at first because your nervous system has been trained to confuse peace with approval. When someone is pleased with you, you feel safe. When someone is disappointed, you feel threatened. So you talk, you explain, you soften, you bend. You give them more access to your inner world than they earned. But here is the truth that will free you. The people who respect you do not need a full documentary to honor a simple limit. And the people who do not respect you will use your explanation as a map to find the weakest door. They will debate your reason, minimize your exhaustion, compare your boundary to their sacrifice, turn your clarity into a negotiation. This is why the most powerful part of a boundary is often what comes after it. Silence. Not cold silence. Not punishment, but grounded silence. The silence of someone who has already spoken clearly and does not need to keep paying rent in someone else's courtroom. Because most people do not lose the battle when they say no. They lose it when they keep talking after the no. And in part 3, we go deeper into the quiet power of boundaries. Why the strongest people are not the ones with the most explanations, but the ones whose standards remain standing, even when someone dislikes them. Part 3. The quiet power of boundaries. Suggested length. 6993 words. A boundary is not a wall. A wall. A wall says, no one gets in. A boundary says, you may enter with respect, or you do not enter at all. There is a difference. One comes from fear. The other comes from self-possession. Modern people hear the word boundary and immediately imagine conflict. They imagine confrontation. They imagine coldness. They imagine becoming the kind of person who pushes everyone away. But a real boundary is not aggression. It is architecture. It is the shape of your self-respect made visible. Without boundaries, your life becomes an unlocked room. People walk in with their moods, their emergencies, their expectations, their guilt, their opinions about what you should tolerate. And because you were trained to be polite before you were trained to be whole, you keep letting them rearrange the furniture inside you. This is why the Stoics cared so deeply about the inner citadel. Not because they want to escape the world, but because they understood that a person without an inner fortress becomes public property. Every insult enters. Every demand enters. Every disappointment enters. Every emotional storm outside becomes weather inside. And eventually, you do not know where your peace ends and other people's chaos begins. The quiet power of boundaries is that they return you to yourself. They teach your nervous system a new law. Access to me is not automatic. My attention is not public property. My energy is not an emergency fund for people who refuse to manage their own lives. Think about the person who texts you only when they are falling apart. They disappear when things are good. They ignore your needs when you are struggling. But the moment their life becomes heavy, your phone lights up. At first you answer, you listen, you stay up late, you become the calm voice, the emotional shelter, the one who understands, and maybe part of you feels needed. But slowly, the pattern becomes clear. They do not want intimacy. They want access. They do not want a relationship. They want relief. And one night, you look at the message, feel the familiar pull to rescue, and choose not to respond immediately, not to punish them, not to play games, not to prove anything, but because your peace is no longer available on demand. That is a boundary, quiet, clean, and powerful. The mistake most people make is believing a boundary must be explained until the other person agrees with it. But agreement is not the foundation of a boundary. Consistency is. You say it once. You say it calmly. Then you live as if your words were true. If you said you are not available tonight, you do not keep checking your phone to measure their reaction. If you said you will not discuss that topic, you do not re-enter the conversation because they baited you with guilt. If you said you need respect, you do not reward disrespect with more access. This is not cruelty. This is training reality to match your standards. And here is where dangerous confidence begins to appear. Not in the first moment you speak the boundary, but in the second moment when someone tests it, when they call you dramatic, when they say, you have changed, when they act wounded because you are no longer easy to control. That is the test. Not whether you can say the words. Anyone can say the words. The question is whether you can remain standing when your old identity starts begging you to collapse. The easy one, the available one, the forgiving one, the one who never made things uncomfortable. That version of you kept the peace by losing yourself. But the new version understands something sharper. Peace that requires self-betrayal is not peace. It is captivity with soft lighting. So let your boundaries be simple. Let them be quiet. Let them be consistent. And when someone dislikes them, do not rush to rescue them from the discomfort of finally meeting the real you. Because boundaries alone are not enough. The moment you set one, someone will test your nervous system. And that is where real confidence is revealed. Part 4. Emotional non-reactivity. The confidence nobody can manipulate. Suggested length. 663 words. The easiest person to control is the person who reacts immediately. Make them feel guilty, and they explain. Make them feel ignored, and they chase. Make them feel criticized, and they defend. Make them feel disrespected, and they explode. This is not freedom. This is emotional slavery with modern vocabulary, and the world knows how to use it. A passive-aggressive message, a delayed reply, a disappointed tone, a sarcastic comment in a meeting, a look that says, "Who do you think you are?" Most people do not notice how quickly their body obeys these signals. Their chest tightens, their face gets hot. Their hands reach for the phone. Their mind starts building a defense before wisdom has even entered the room. That is why Stoicism is not just philosophy. It is nervous system training. The Stoics called it apatheia, not apathy, not numbness, not pretending nothing hurts. Apatheia means you are no longer dragged around by every emotion that appears inside you. You can feel the wave without becoming the wave. You can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can feel guilt without surrendering your boundary. You can feel fear without handing your choices back to the crowd. This is dangerous confidence, not the confidence of someone who never feels pressure, but the confidence of someone who does not let pressure make their decisions. Imagine receiving a message that says, "Wow, I guess you're too busy for people now." The old version of you would panic. You would read it 3 times. You would feel accused. Then you would start typing. "I'm sorry, I've just been really overwhelmed, and I didn't mean to make you feel ignored, and I hope you know I care." A paragraph born from fear. A paragraph written not to express truth, but to escape discomfort. But the new version pauses. You put the phone down. You breathe. You let the first emotional wave rise and fall without obeying it. Then later, from a steadier place, you answer, "I'm not available for this conversation tonight." That sentence will feel almost illegal if you have spent years being emotionally available on command. But that is the point. Freedom always feels wrong to the part of you that was trained for captivity. The pause is where your power returns, not the perfect reply, not the clever comeback, not the explanation that finally makes them understand. The pause. Because in that pause, you remember that someone else's emotional state is not automatically your assignment. Their anger is not your emergency. Their disappointment is not your judge. Their confusion is not always your responsibility to repair. This does not mean you become careless with people. A Stoic is not heartless. A Stoic is precise. You listen when listening is useful. You apologize when you have truly acted against your values. You explain when explanation serves clarity. But you do not react just because someone shook the cage. You do not abandon your center just because another person lost theirs. So build the pause. Do not answer when your body is hot. Do not defend while your ego is bleeding. Do not make promises while guilt is holding your throat. Do not explain while fear is choosing your words. Wait until you can speak from dignity, because once you stop reacting, something strange happens. You stop needing to be seen as the good person in every story. You stop rushing into the emotional courtroom. You stop letting people use your conscience as a leash. And that is when confidence becomes dangerous, because a person who cannot be easily provoked cannot be easily controlled. A person who does not chase approval cannot be led by guilt. A person who can remain calm under pressure becomes impossible to manipulate in the old ways. And in part 5, we bring everything together. The final form of dangerous confidence is not noise. It is the ability to say less, stand taller, and let your life become the explanation. Part 5. Dangerous confidence. Say less, stay less, stand taller. Suggested length. 625 words. Dangerous confidence is not loud. It does not need to enter the room and announce itself. It does not need to dominate the conversation, win every argument, or make everyone agree. That is not confidence. That is hunger wearing a stronger face. Arrogance needs witnesses. Insecurity needs applause. But real confidence can stand in silence and lose nothing. It is the person who says, "That does not work for me," and does not attach a biography to the sentence. It is the person who lets a misunderstanding exist, without sprinting back to repair their image. It is the person who can be disliked and still remain aligned. It is the person who no longer turns every relationship into a courtroom where they must prove their innocence. This is the final form of the work, not aggression, not coldness, not emotional distance, but calm non-negotiation. The Stoic does not ask the world for permission to live by reason. He does not hand his peace to the crowd and wait for them to return it gently. He knows what belongs to him. His choices, his values, his actions, his boundaries, his response, and he knows what does not belong to him, their interpretation, their disappointment, their gossip, their emotional reaction to losing access they were never entitled to keep. That distinction is freedom. You cannot control whether people approve of your boundary. You can only control whether you abandon it when approval disappears. And this is where most people collapse. Not because they are weak, but because they have spent years confusing approval with safety. So when someone pulls back, they panic. When someone misunderstands them, they explain. When someone calls them selfish, they surrender. When someone becomes cold, they start bargaining with their own dignity. But the dangerously confident person has learned to remain standing in that exact moment. The moment approval leaves the room. The moment guilt starts whispering. The moment the old self says, "Just explain one more time." Just soften it. Just make them comfortable. And instead of obeying, they breathe. They stay still. They let the discomfort pass without becoming a servant to it. That is self-trust. That is strength. That is the quiet power of boundaries. You do not need more speeches. You need more consistency. You do not need more explanations. You need more alignment. You do not need to become harder. You need to stop being available to manipulation. Let your life become the explanation. Let your consistency become the proof. Let your peace become the boundary. Because the people who truly respect you will not need endless access to your reasons before they honor your limits. And the people who only respected your usefulness will call your healing arrogance. Let them. Some people will only call you difficult when you stop being easy to control. Some people will only say you changed when you stop betraying yourself in ways that benefited them. That is not a warning. That is confirmation. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, pause. Ask yourself, am I creating clarity? Or am I trying to purchase approval with my peace? Your answer will tell you everything. And now I want you to choose a side. Do you believe real confidence means making people understand you? Or does real confidence begin when you no longer need to be understood by everyone? Pick one side in the comments and defend it. If this message gave language to something you have felt for years, subscribe to Stoic Chisel. Because this channel is not here to make you louder. It is here to help you become unshakable. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Say less. Stand tall.